1 week ago, I spent a lot of time praying in tongues. I did a fast and I was praying for 8 hours a day. I did that for 5 days. And after doing it for these 5 days, praying in tongues for these 5 days, I realized something. It wasn't the first time that I was experiencing this thing, but I experienced it on a level that I had never experienced it before. And that was obvious because I was praying in tongues on a scale that I had never prayed in tongues before and at an intensity I had never done before. And I learned a few things, which of course I want to share with you here. Now, during my early days of praying, I used to pray to God concerning issues. Basically, I would pray concerning issues of life. And there were things which were making my life uncomfortable. So I would pray to God to give me a solution. I would pray to God to provide for me. I would pray for God to do the usual things that we usually pray for. And then I realized that it got to some point I started getting tired. And it wasn't being tired in the sense of tired to pray, but more of tired of praying for the same things over and over and over. So it would happen like sometimes I would pray for probably God to like provide for me money. And then after God has provided that money, I would go for a number of months. And then I would find myself in another situation where again I have to pray to God to provide money. And while that may not seem like anything strange, to me it's like it made me raise questions like, for how long am I going to be praying for this one thing? Because I felt like there were more important things for me to pray for rather than just to pray for those needs that I had. And so what happened was that I kind of started toning down on praying for those needs. And then I switched to praying more for spiritual needs. So instead of praying for things like financial breakthrough, I began praying for things like wisdom, praying for things like God may give me joy and peace and contentment and you see those kind of things. Because my thinking was that probably I am asking for money over and over because I have an issue with contentment. So I said, if I can just pray to God to give me a high level of contentment, probably I'll not need even to pray for things because I'll just be contented with whatever I have. So that was my thinking. And so I switched my prayers to praying for more of those spiritual needs, things that would shape my character, as opposed to things that would like things that would actually come to my life. You see, things like money, things like what? Just the basic needs that human beings have. So I began praying for those things. So when I began praying, I realized that my character started improving. And I realized that my hunger and thirst for the many things that I was seeking for, things like wanting to become rich, wanting to get married, wanting to live a certain lifestyle, you see, build a house and own things, and a new phone, and I knew this, I knew that. You see, those desires just started going down. And one of the things I noticed was that I would go for a very long period without buying clothes, and I would not even feel like buying clothes at all. And to some extent, I started feeling as if I was becoming a little bit outdated. You see, the way young people are so much into the like trends. Yeah, like what is trending, the newest something, the newest phone, the newest blah blah blah. For me, I began seeing like I didn't need like I for some reason I just felt at peace with what I had, and so looking for anything new was becoming a little tough for me. And then it got now to a point where I started praying in tongues, because those were like those prayer items were happening before I received the gift of praying in tongues. So eventually, when I received the gift of praying in tongues, I now even stopped praying for specific things like love and peace, contentment. I just started praying in tongues. And then I realized that praying in tongues would just sort everything. And I wouldn't even need to pray and mention any specific thing, because just by praying in tongues, everything will just get sorted. And now this is where the thing that I want to talk about comes in. It is a kind of I can't find a good one. The best word would be contentment. But then for someone to understand well, I will use the word spoil. So basically, it's kind of when I speak in tongues, they raise the bar of contentment and peace and just the general standard of life experience. Let me call it life experience. Like it raises it to a level that nothing else can match it. And so that comes with the effect of things start losing their importance in your life. And it is a little bit scary because it's not the usual expected thing. So you'll start seeing like your taste for more money just starts vanishing. And all of a sudden, you just feel like you almost don't need any more money, or you just don't see money anymore as an essential thing. And it is a strange thing to think about because of the world that we live in, this world of capitalism. Of course, that is a strange thing to imagine that there is somebody who really is losing taste for money. But then it also applies to many other things. I have made a video before talking about how I would pray in tongues for a long time and then I would not feel like talking to anyone. So even things like friendships and like friendships and family, talking to people, you see, you also just start losing that desire. Reason being, when you pray in tongues, the peace that you feel is just so high that nothing else that you do in your life can actually give you that level of peace. And so it's like you have been spoiled by that high level of peace. So all you do is just want to pray in tongues more and experience that peace, because you can try everything else and it will not give you the same level of peace. And so for a while, I started having these experiences whereby I would feel this so much heavenly peace, heavenly joy, this just heavenly contentment, and the usual things of life will not make sense to me. Of course, it brought some issues with my family, especially my dad. He would not understand why things that naturally I should be very eager to pursue, all of a sudden I have no taste for them. One of them was grades in school. When I was in school, I was an intelligent person. I used to score A's. And I was mostly like the consultant in the class, even. Most people would come to consult. And then I began praying that God would give me knowledge. And the more knowledge I got, the more like pointless school became, because the type of knowledge that God was giving me, it just has a way of making you feel a million times more lively than any knowledge that is taught in school or any earthly knowledge. So I could not really explain it. I just knew that it just felt good to get knowledge from God. And so I began, of course, feeling like I'm wasting my time by being in school. And so when I mentioned that to a number of people, of course, they didn't really take it well because they could not just understand why someone who is actually doing well in school and like good performance, and all of a sudden he's just losing interest. But it was not losing interest, it was more of I had gotten something sweeter. And so that has continued until last, like a week ago, when I did a fast. So when I did that fast, I prayed in tongues a lot. And during that fast, there were many things that I had suspended, of course, to do the fast and the praying. And after the fast, I thought, yeah, I'll just go back to my normal life after the fast. But how wrong was I? Because after the fast, the like the feeling I was having, the peace I was experiencing, the joy and the breakthroughs, and you see, it just feels there is just it's just beyond words. The best way to just describe it is what the Bible says: peace that surpasses human understanding. That's just how best I can describe it. It's not that I received anything special, like probably receiving things or money or something, or like there was just nothing. It just went from I was just exactly the way I was from the beginning to the end of the fast. But by the end of the fast, there was just a transformation within me that I could not explain. But this transformation just made me feel so good that I didn't want anything else. I didn't want, like, I didn't even have a desire to talk to anyone. I didn't have a desire to, like, look for money. I didn't have a desire to, like, do anything else. The only things that I was feeling comfortable to do was to pray and to clean. So basically, if I would clean, I would feel okay. And if I prayed, I would feel okay. But even eating, I felt a little disappointed when I began eating. It was surprising, but it has happened to me a number of times, even when I was also fasting. Anytime I'm coming to the end of the fast, when I start eating, I start feeling a little bad. And it's not real, I can't really put it in words, but I just feel like fasting is better than eating. That's just how it feels. Even though I know my body is becoming weak and I need to eat, but I just had that feeling. So it is something that I attribute to getting close to Christ and getting very close to God. When you get very close to God, you start realizing just how exceedingly good God is and just how this world is, yeah, basically uh, just there. And I've also heard this from people who have had heavenly encounters or people who have actually met Jesus. If somebody has had like an encounter and they have met Jesus, usually when they come back, yeah, their life, they just stop pursuing everything else that the usual average person of the world would be pursuing. And their focus is just on the life to come. They are just focused on the return of Christ. They are just focused on holiness. They are just focused on righteousness and peace and joy. And you see those heavenly things. More like also what Paul was doing. You see, it got to some point where to him, Christ was just everything, to the point that he didn't even like consider basic things like marriage or something, like which you would expect a normal man to be considering. And so it is a little scary to get to that point because, yeah, it is not a very familiar place and not very many people get to that point where they get tired of uh, this normal way of living life, or this life of capitalism, this life of you see, just this life of toiling. Let me call it toiling. Yeah, it gets to a point where you just want Jesus Christ alone. Yeah, and it is a little bit scary. So when you pray in tongues a lot, initially you will start by wanting God to sort things for you. Then you will pray and pray and pray, and depending on who you are, you will start getting tired of praying for certain things. And then you'll also start getting tired of disappointments, because sometimes you pray for things, you don't get them. Then you start getting disappointed. Then you say, what do I do? So you try shifting your prayers to better things. And the more you just shift those things, you'll eventually get to a point whereby you are so full of Christ, you are so full of goodness, you are so full of contentment, you are so full of peace, that basically everything else stops making sense. And I now understand why Jesus Christ lived the life that he lived, basically owning nothing, completely nothing, to the point that he didn't even have a house. He would just go to the garden and pray the whole night. And I now understand why that kind of life was the one that Christ actually lived. Because to Christ, basically, if, like, according to his own words, he said that if somebody has what? Food and clothing, that is enough. Like, according to Christ, those are the basic needs of a human being. And today we have increased them, and we are now saying things like, oh, we need shelter, and then there is the need of what else? Let me try to remember the basic needs, because I was taught when I was still young, I was taught that there were 5 basic needs. There was food, there was shelter, and education, and what else? I've forgotten the others. But you see, this just goes to show that um, how Christ perceives life and how we perceive life. And this also explains why sometimes when you go to pray and asking God for things, He is very reluctant to give them to you, because God sees those things are not basic needs, but for you, you are seeing them as basic needs. And yeah, of course, He hopes that you will get tired of asking for those things as if they are basic needs, and instead just choose Him. Yeah, but then, yeah, we are at different levels, and we are growing. So this is just my encouragement to you, that as you pray in tongues, don't resist the nudge of the Holy Spirit to get to a level where you are so intimate with God that most things of this life stop making sense. And your dedication to God is just becoming, like, your dedication to God becomes very intense. It's actually a good thing, a very good thing, although it's very scary, and it attracts a lot of persecution. Yeah, but it's a good thing. And I'm at a point where I am investing more time in prayer, and cutting down as many uh, as many pointless pursuits as possible, so that I may live for Christ. And because it just makes me feel good. Like, you see, the way I'm right now, I've just come from praying in tongues for 1 hour, and I'm feeling so good and just so much at peace. I really can't ask for anything. I am just good and fine and okay. And the only thing on my mind right now is I want to go and pray in tongues again. I was to prepare some food, but I actually just bought food. And after buying food, I just felt eat again. And I just say, I don't think I need to eat again at this time. So I just said, let me pray. And I feel better because I have chosen to pray rather than even eating. And it's a little bit scary. Yeah, I have to admit, it's a little scary to realize that you prefer praying more than eating. I don't know why, but it's just scary. It scares me a little bit. But thank God. Yeah, so my encouragement to you is keep praying in tongues, and you will experience the very good heavenly presence and heavenly peace. And It will raise your standard of life experience to a point that many of the things that you may be seeking God for, maybe trusting God for, asking God for, yeah, they just stop making sense. And not in a bad way. It is just like you get so much goodness that what you thought was actually good stops being a priority anymore. And then at that point, of course, you are just on the brink of becoming like Christ and entering into what? Eternal, eternal bliss, eternal joy, eternal peace. Yeah, so that's it for today. And God bless you.